Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. John here with Knight and Shining Armor Paint Correction, Ceramic Coatings, and Detailing. Today we have a 2017 Honda Civic that had been involved in a little minor scuffle in a driveway. The owner of the vehicle wanted to get it in and just get rid of the obvious scratches and scrapes. We were very forthcoming and upfront that we didn't think they would all come out, but we were going to do our best to at least hide the eyesore from getting in the vehicle every day or every time they got in it. I'm going to start with a waterless wash, which you don't see on camera here. We were trying to keep the length of it down, so that was one step we didn't film. But we're using the Flex XCE forced rotation polisher with a Euro 50/50 pad and 3D1 to see what we can polish out first before we go off to wet sanding with 3000. We knew that was going to be inevitable, but we wanted to see what we were dealing with first. And as you can see here, we're still left with some scratches and scrapes that weren't going to polish out. So we're going to bust out the 3000 grit here and get to wet sanding. And for those of you that don't know, that white milky substance is Clearcoat. You're actually shaving Clearcoat off. If you don't know what you're doing or you've never done it before, we recommend going and getting a junk panel from a junkyard or a body shop. The body shops will gladly just give it to you, and you can practice and hone your craft or skill of wet sanding. For me personally, I've been wet sanding since 1992, so I'm showing my age a little bit. As we're going around here, this whole video is sped up twice the normal rate. I wish I could wet sand this fast by hand. But we're wiping off the residue and getting rid of the wetness to see what we're left with so we can work on just certain spots. And we know that these few spots are not going to come all the way out. You're going to be left with a line. And we're hoping for one of two things. One, we can turn it into a shiny scratch that you don't see it at all and it's no longer white. Or if that doesn't happen, we can actually use some touch-up paint and strategically fill those lines or scratches and help hide them completely. Now, you'll still see them if you go chasing after them, but from 1.5 to 2 feet away, you will never see them at all. And as we were polishing this driver's side rear door here, we started to notice that the texture in the middle of the door towards the rear half of the door was a lot different than the rest of the vehicle. We came to the conclusion that it had been resprayed. And as we polished this thing, we realized the clear coat on this thing was significantly harder than the rest of the vehicle. For anybody that's polished a vehicle before, especially a Honda, they have had notoriously soft clear coats since the mid-90s, as far as I can remember. And I'm sure we've all walked past a Honda Civic sitting in a parking lot somewhere that is from the mid to late 90s or the early 2000s, and the thing looks like it's been washed with steel wool because the clear coat is so soft. Doesn't look like it's ever gotten waxed a day in its life. We see those all the time, or at least I do, and it's kind of sad, actually. It's a blessing in disguise with the softer clears. They scratch and swirl significantly easy, but on the flip side of that, they polish like butter. It's a twofold situation. For this little area that I wet sanded on the front door, I'm going to use the Flex PXE80. I'm still using a Euro 50/50 pad plus 3D1. And I don't know how many times I'll say this throughout the video, but we are not chasing perfection here. I know from the word go that this is not going to be a perfect job in the end because some of the scratches are just too deep. What I originally thought, for instance, on the door handle was simply paint transfer from the other vehicle actually was ground down to the plastic. So at first glance, you thought the door handle wasn't going to be a big deal, and in reality, it was the worst of all the damage, probably because it stuck out further than the rest of the vehicle. Removing any kind of scratches like this, especially on black, is such a tedious process. And especially for someone with a trained eye that you're always going to see it, you have to help hide it so you don't see it yourself. So you know, as the detailer or technician working on the vehicle, that if you make it so you can't see it, you know that it's completely hidden to the customer. And that's exactly what you're looking to do. And like I mentioned earlier, we realized that the driver's side rear door had been resprayed. We were dealing with a much harder clear coat. It became apparent, especially on the giant area that we wet sanded, that 3D1 was not aggressive enough to remove the 3000 grit scratches from this much harder clear coat. So we did 2 drops of 3D1 and 2 drops of 3D AAT 501. We didn't want to bust out the ACA 500 or the Angel Wax Resurrection Extreme. We wanted to stay least aggressive as possible. And we came up with a witch's brew that would cut and finish down so you could keep it to a one step essentially. So as you learn in this business, some things do not go according to plan. Every once in a while, there's a monkey wrench thrown into whatever you're doing. And not to quote a line from one of my favorite movies, but you have to adapt to the environment. Darwin, stuff happens, I Ching, whatever. You just got to roll with it. You got to make the best of whatever you're doing and make it work and make it happen. The last part of that is all me, but the rest is a line from the movie Collateral, if anybody's ever seen it, from 2004. At least I think it came out in 2004. But I digress. So we're just about done with all the polishing on this thing. I'm going to give it a once going over to make sure there aren't any sand marks left over and everything that we wanted to take care of in that rear door is gone. And as you can see, the door itself looks pretty good, except for a few marks. What we're going to do is we're going to take some touch-up paint on our finger. It's water-based touch-up paint because water matches water. Since all these vehicles are sprayed with water these days, water matches water 10 times better than any solvent ever will. Giant shout out to my brother from another mother, Richard, down in Austin, Texas, who's still spraying for a living. We bounce all these painting things off each other all the time, and he's the one that told me that because I haven't sprayed in 15 years. I gave that stuff up a long time ago. I can still do it if I want to do it, but it's more of a personal thing if I want to spray anything these days. I still hold all the credentials, ASC recertified refinish technician, all that cool stuff. As you can see, I'm just taking the brush and putting it on my finger with a latex glove on and just lightly tapping where I want this color. Because what we're going to try and do is we're going to fill what we need, and then we're going to put it outside in the sun because it's water and we want it to bake, so we don't have to let it sit overnight. And then we're going to repolish the areas where we put the touch-up paint, and 95% of the time it will fill the scratch or the mark, and polishing won't remove because it's sitting underneath. And like this whole process, it's tedious. It takes time. Nothing is ever just a quote unquote easy fix. In the grand scheme of everything, it might be an easy fix, but it's not going to be done in no 2 minutes. As you can see here, I am still touching up little marks, scratches, what have you. Just about done touching everything up. The door handle really concerned me the most because I didn't feel that we were going to be able to take care of that. You're still going to see just the darkness of where the raw plastic is, but we were going to try our best. So we're done with the touch-up. Let's get it outside and let it bake, and bring it back in and repolish it. After a couple hours out in the sun, we brought it back inside after lunchtime, and we're just polishing where the touch-up paint is. Not being too aggressive, we just want to remove the extra touch-up paint. In the grand scheme of everything, this probably takes the least amount of time. For those of you that are wondering how much total time this took, because this is compressed into a 15-minute video, if you include the 2 hours outside, we probably had 3.5 hours in it, maybe 4 tops. But if you don't include it being outside in the sun, or it's cold out and you can't do that, you would more than likely, after the touch-up, you would have to keep it in overnight and allow it to fully cure before you could do anything like that. Or if you wanted to add more color or you wanted to add clear to it, you have to let that water-based base coat fully cure, or you're going to remove it if you're trying to add more base. When it comes to touch-up, it's not something you want to rush. You have to know what you're doing, which in all my years of spraying, there were times that as soon as Clearcoat would flash off and be hand slick, we would pull it outside in the sun if we needed something else in the booth. As my buddy Richard would attest, when we were painting together down in Texas, Wednesdays without an oven, we were painting 12 to 15 cars a day. It was kind of insane what we were doing. There were a lot of beer 30s at night when we worked together, I can tell you that much. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to use a panel prep here to remove any of the polishing oils or the compound oils. This particular panel prep is Tax System Oil Zero. This will sound silly. We have a couple different panel preps here. Like when we're installing a Fireball coating, we like to stay with Fireball Reborn. If we're just doing entry-level coating like BC2 or TAC Moonlight, we use PDP panel prep. And now we're going to put some protection on the outside of this Honda. This is Fireball Carnauba wax. It's a spray wax. We realized by looking at the rest of the vehicle that it's probably never going to see spray wax or any kind of wax ever again because the rest of it is just highly scratched and swirled. So we didn't want to polish it and not put any kind of protection on it. And we tried to blend out what we polished and what we didn't. So as time went on, it would just look as silly as this sounds, as trashed as the rest of the clear coat is. Because it is black. You're trying to hide what repairs you did, but still show that what was there is gone. This is kind of the art of the invisible repair, for lack of a better way to put it, folks. So let's get this thing outside. You're going to see a beautiful Buick T-Type being pushed by. I don't know exactly where they were going. It was on a flatbed yesterday. Before that. But back to this Honda. We're going to back it outside. Going to come in and grab the camera. We're going to take you outside and show you the finished results. Get back inside here. I'm stoked that it's done. And it looks great. Once again, my name is John. We are Knight in Shining Armor Paint Correction, Ceramic Coatings, and Detailing. Hope you like this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everybody watching our videos. Everybody have a great week. See you in the next video.